we're going to continue Macbeth now because of an extraordinary opportunity. Our discovery that either we never finished Macbeth or there's a missing part 2, a lecture which has somehow been misplaced or lost. I get to redo this play, which I just did quite thoroughly with a couple of students last week for 8 hours. That is, I had greater leisure to do it last week than I've had for a long, long time, because usually with students at school I have to accelerate the pace. I have to pick up the pace. I can't go too slowly. But I went slowly last week with 2 Korean students whose English is quite good, obviously. What a blessing. So, enough prologue. I'm going to revert to Act 2, Scene 1. In fact, no. I'm going to revert to Act 1, Scene... yes. Act 1, Scene 7. Because in the process of redoing the play, I have a new view of the play, and it's remarkable, and I welcome this opportunity to express it here on film. In fact, I've already written 100 lines about it to include in my work, because it will fit, I think, very well. This is a little bit mature for a little bit mature audiences, but this is a serious thing, and let's put it this way. We live in a world of Viagra. I think that says the whole thing. The whole thing. We live in a world in which literally billions of Viagras are taken. Millions and millions worldwide take Viagra. Okay, then there's no mystery here. Okay, what happens? In Act 1, Scene 7, the feast is going on there at Inverness, at the Macbeth's castle, and Macbeth has left the room, deeply disturbed about his conscience bothering him. Lady Macbeth leaves the feast also. Must be very festive. 2 great victories won that day. The country saved. Duncan's throne saved. Macbeth, the hero who defeated, with Banquo and others, 2 hostile forces. Amazing. But they've been fighting and riding all day. Must be exhausted. And poor Duncan, a somewhat elderly man, exhausted too. Lady Macbeth leaves the room and says to her husband, "What are you doing? Why did you leave the room? Did he ask for me?" "Yes, of course he asked for you." I'll get a line number, but I think I probably... line 31 in my Pelican edition. "We will proceed no further in this business." I won't talk about it anymore. I won't think about it anymore. We will proceed no further in this business of the plot to kill Duncan. By line 70, by line 72, he is enthusiastic about doing it. What happens in those crucial 40 lines to change his mind? I think one has to take that as a key to the play. Now, admittedly, other forces are at work. The forces of evil are at work in Macbeth and in Lady Macduff. But I have a new understanding of what how these forces of evil possibly work. Not so mysterious, maybe. Why? How does Lady Macbeth turn him around? Literally turn him around. This great man. She does it by attacking his manliness, his manhood. Now, I think I said this before. In my own theory now, there are 2 things that must be accepted. 1, Macbeth is sexually impotent. 2, they are childless. 2, he's sexually impotent. So it's his fault. Now, that they are childless is hinted again and again in the play. I won't cite the lines now. A barren scepter, a fruitless throne, he refers to later. There are other hints too that they have no children. We know, though, that she had a child because she had nursed. And in this very scene, in these 40 lines, she says, as I've already told, I won't repeat too much, if she had made promises like the ones he had made, she would crush the baby's skull, kill the baby. Okay, so where does that leave us? If they have no children, if she has had a child, possibly a previous marriage. Now, there are several lines, though, that suggest impotence on his part. Function is swallowed in surmise. I can't come up with them right now, but it doesn't matter right now because we don't have time to dwell on this. But if I'm right that they are childless, that he is impotent, then the way that she turns him around in those 40 lines is exactly what happens in those 40 lines. She attacks his manliness, and he is stunned. It's a classic situation that people should be aware of because it's so human. All men are vulnerable on the score. All women know this. Lady Macbeth is very sharp. Now, what I'm really suggesting is not something to giggle about, but what I'm suggesting is that the forces of evil get to the Macbeths by this way. That is, by something not mysterious and mental and deeply psychological, but something very mundane, everyday. Make him sexually impotent, go to work on her. He becomes this uxorious man, there's a great word, a man who struggles to please his wife, who is somewhat subservient to his wife. Does he become that? Yes. And in this scene especially? Yes. And that is how she turns him around. And it literally, you see it happen in those 40 lines. Not just that he turns around, but that is how she turns him around. And this becomes more brilliant, in my opinion, by Shakespeare, because less obscure and psychological, as most authors would leave it, I think, very psychological. And there we are. Wow. Okay. Then they perform the murder, Act 3. Act 3 is basically Banquo's act. At the beginning of Act 3, Scene 1, I remember he's talking with no. Okay, I better check, sorry. The very beginning I want to get. Banquo, yeah. You have it now. Oh, yeah. And Macbeth, that's it. Banquo is thinking to himself, well, you have it all now. Glamis, Cawdor, and the throne. And I fear thou didst play most foully for it. Foully? Fair is foul, foul is fair, the opening lines of the play, and Macbeth's first words. Very well made play, I think. As I think I've commented, it's so short, and there is some speculation that some acts or scenes at least have been lost. I don't think so. It's so good the way it is. Okay. In fact, there are 2 scenes that shouldn't even be in there. But, okay. So along comes Macbeth. Hi, Banquo. See you at the feast tonight. I especially want you at our feast tonight that we're going to have. Wouldn't miss it. Are you going somewhere this afternoon? Yes, I'm going out for a long ride. Will you be back this evening? Sure, I'll be back, but I might be back a little after dark. Oh, by the way, well, make sure you come to our feast. By the way, is Fleance going with you? Fleance is his son. Of course, Fleance is the number 1 concern of Macbeth, because the Weird Sisters have already predicted that Banquo's progeny will be future kings. Macbeth would love to see that not happen. No hint, though, about his having children. Okay. Yes, Fleance is going with me, too. Okay, we'll have a nice ride. See you tonight. Then he turns to everyone and says, you all are free to pursue your own private pleasures until the banquet tonight. This means that no one is watching him either, because this is going to be part of the mystery. Okay, Then he turns to his two murderers. They have a long conversation, which is easily summarized, fortunately. He says, now, I told you guys in previous conversations how your fallen fortunes, things are not going well for these men, are the fault of Banquo. It's Banquo's fault. You remember? Yes, we remember. Have you decided to do what I'm asking you to do, and I will help you recover your family fortunes? We will. Murder Banquo. And please get Fleance too, he says, as an afterthought, knowing that that's really almost it's as important. He wants Banquo dead because Banquo knows him too well, and also he feels humbled around Banquo because he senses Banquo's moral superiority to him, real or imagined, but even real, we can accept that. Okay, then the murder scene. This will contain the second mystery of the play. The first, we remember, I assume I mentioned it, was Lady Macbeth's fainting upon learning that Macbeth had killed the two grooms in his rage. Is her faint real or feigned? I think I said before, real or pretended. There are reasons for both. Okay, now the murder of Banquo and attempt of Fleance. The two murderers are waiting outside the castle in the dark near the road to the castle because we already know that's the way that Banquo will come. We already know that it's almost dark. Perfect opportunity for this murder. Suddenly there's a third murderer. Who told you to come? Why are you here? No explanation. And this third murderer seems to have some special knowledge. He knows what they don't. It's common for most riders to get off of their horses about a mile from the castle and walk that last mile. He has knowledge that maybe the murderers don't. In fact, let's get to the point. This third murderer could be Macbeth himself. Or it could be some emissary, some envoy from the forces of evil. I prefer, I think by now, the latter, but it doesn't matter. Why would Macbeth either be there himself, or another possibility, of course, is he sent the third murderer? Why? Because he trusts no one. Because a man like him, having done what he's done, can trust no one. He wants to make sure the job is done right. Okay. Why the Dark Sisters, or the Weird Sisters? Because they want to make sure that Fleance gets away. It's very important that Fleance get away, and the presence of someone from their forces can guarantee that he will get away. Good reasons, both sides, mysterious. The murder takes place, but Fleance gets away. Banquo is killed. Following scene, the banquet. Everyone feeling very festive. Now, I don't think it could be Macbeth, though it's possible. I'll tell you why. Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, I imagine about 100 guests, a lot. Everyone happy, joyous, festive. Two thrones are at the top of the room there for the king and queen, but Macbeth himself is mingling among the people. Lady Macbeth sits in state. Jokes and so forth. Suddenly enter the first murderer. Macbeth goes over to see him, feeling very happy. Probably then it was not Macbeth himself, the third murderer, because he's too happy. He would be disturbed by the news. Okay, I admit. You've got some blood on your face. Then it's Banquo's. It looks better on your face outside than on him inside. Is he dead? He's got 20 gashes on his head. One of those gashes would kill a man. He's got 20 of them. Good. Then you're a number one murderer. Macbeth feeling jocular. If you did as much for Fleance, you are You are the god of murderers. Fleance got away. Then I'm cribbed, confined, hemmed into saucy doubts. Only half, he says aside. Disturbed. Dear, come over. The guests are missing you. Why are you lingering over there with that strange man? Okay, I'll be right there. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Then he mingles again. And then Lennox, I think, among the guests, says, "Have a seat, my lord." But all the seats are full. There's no seat. And this one's free. And Macbeth looks and, ne'er shake thy gory locks at me. I didn't do it, he says. This is his low point, I would say. Morally, maybe. Psychologically, certainly. And the same thing happens to Othello in Act 5. After he murders Desdemona, and Emilia comes in and sees the dead body. I didn't do it, says Othello absurdly. I didn't do it, says Macbeth to the ghost of Banquo, because it's the ghost of Banquo. Okay. Everyone else says, What? He's talking to a chair. What? Come on, dear, stop being an ass. Be a man, as she always says. Always harping on that theme. It's her only means of controlling him, actually. And a little scary. Wow. A play for the age of Viagra. It sounds funny, it sounds cute, but there's nothing cute really about that physical phenomenon among men. Ask a man if he thinks it's cute. No, it's not cute. It has a comical side, of course, but it's not cute. Okay, and certainly to Macbeth it's not cute. Macbeth who lacked Viagra. Okay, here we go. So, stop talking to the chair and shut up. But Macbeth is so upset. And then it disappears, and the crowd is buzzing. What's wrong with him? Is he crazy? What? And she goes to work on him. Stop this. This is no more real than that dagger you told me about. Well, that's interesting. Just before killing Duncan, he had his vision of the dagger. Is this a dagger that I see before me? Its hilt pointed toward me. It's interesting that he had told her about the dagger. This must have happened right after the killing. And this means that at that point there was still some communication between them. But that communication, as we've already seen, will grow less and less and less quickly. For example, she knows nothing about the murder of Banquo. He didn't consult her. He didn't tell her that he was going to do it. Less and less. More and more estranged. Okay. Now, no, he was more real than this chair, than this table. Don't worry, guess. Okay, everything okay. And then, the ghost reappears. Shakespearean ghosts always appear twice. Like the ghost in Hamlet, Act 1, who appears twice. The ghost of Julius Caesar in Act 5 of Julius Caesar appears twice to Brutus. Strange. There must be something in the ghost literature about that Shakespeare picked up. Okay, guess I'm sorry, the banquet is called off. You have to go. And they talk a little more, and we realize that Macduff did not attend this banquet, although he was bidden to do so. And Macbeth says, I have a spy in every one of their houses. He trusts no one, of course, and that's important to this state of mind. He knows that he could not be trusted, and he knows, well, then no one else can be trusted either. And he more and more is going to focus his hostile intents on Macduff. Then, okay, let me check. Oh, we get, yeah. The old man, yeah. I've stepped so far in blood, yeah. Then Act 3, Scene 6, a wonderful speech by Lennox. Lennox represents all of the Scottish Thanes at this point. Gives a very sarcastic speech to a fellow lord. You know, it's very strange. Macbeth was very devoted to Duncan, and suddenly the boys of Duncan killed Duncan, and Macbeth became king. It just goes to show you, you can't trust your own sons. He obviously does not believe that the sons, Donalbain and Malcolm, killed their father. He obviously believes that Macbeth did. And Banquo took a walk late at night. He's dead. It just goes to show you, you mustn't walk late at night. Very sarcastic speech. And if Macbeth could get his hands on Fleance, because people at first thought Fleance must have been responsible for the murder of his father, Banquo, but people know better, of course. If Macbeth could get his hands on Fleance, if Macbeth could get his hands on Donalbain and Malcolm, he'd show them what it is to kill a father. He'd kill them. So we now realize that everyone realizes what Macbeth has done. And so the whole country is really against him, and he feels this, of course. The following, now we're in Act 4. Great, Act 4, Scene 1. Act 4 is easily summarized. And it's a good way to remember the play is by turning to Act 4, actually. 3 scenes, 1, 2, 3. In Scene 1, Macbeth goes to see the Weird Sisters again. I'll summarize later. Scene 1. First, the Weird Sisters are there, double, toil and trouble. The boys enjoyed my doing that. In fact, that has become a symbol of the play for us. Over the cauldron. Then Macbeth enters. He tries to command them. They don't listen. And they say, you listen. 3 apparitions. Something that appear. The first apparition is an armed head. Right? Yep, I'm sure. An armed head. And that apparition says, whoa, beware Macduff. Second apparition, a bloody child. Ooh, but you don't need to fear any man born of woman. Well, then I don't have to worry about Macduff. But I'll kill him anyway, says Macbeth, somewhat wittily. One point I'm going to make heavily in Act 5 is Shakespeare finds ways for us to continue to like, if not admire, like Macbeth. And one way in Acts 4 and especially in Act 5 all the way to his death is that Macbeth is witty. He's a witty guy. Second, his physical courage. He's fearless. He is a remarkable man, a warrior. Little ways that Shakespeare finds to keep our affection. Meanwhile, big ways, he's losing it. Okay. And third apparition, no man will defeat you until Birnam Wood, which is a woods somewhere near Dunsinane, big royal castle up on the hill, until Birnam Wood walks up that hill to Dunsinane Castle. Well, that'll never happen. Who ever heard of a walking woods? So I guess I'm safe, but I think I've got some more questions. You listen. Go away, Macbeth, blah, 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 blah. And then we get not another, it's a pageant, it's usually called, I think, a show of kings and last Banquo. 8 kings and Banquo. 8 crowned figures plus Banquo. Well, this is what Macbeth least wanted to know. This relates, by the way, back to King James's own claims to be related to Banquo and ultimately related even to Duncan, because these themes were so interrelated anyway. Okay. Didn't want to see that. Curse on you, a curse on you all, he says, cursing the forces of evil. They disappear. Macbeth comes outside. Lennox is there. So was Lennox and Ross. Did you see the Weird Sisters come by? No. Macduff is fled to England, Lennox tells him. Then I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to kill his family, he decides. Wow. Scene 2 is precisely that. takes place at Macduff's castle, Fife. Lady Macduff is there. Her children are with her. The opening is a conversation between Ross and Lady Macduff, who are related. And Ross tries to defend Macduff's decision to go to England at this critical time. And it in itself is a mystery. But if you start looking for mysteries in this way, everything, literally everything is a mystery. Why would Macduff, if he loves his family, choose this moment of great danger to leave his family in such danger and go to England? Ross tries to defend him, but really it's kind of indefensible, actually. Perhaps he thinks, well, even if I were there, I couldn't defend them much if Macbeth sent, for example, a large force. Excuse me. Anyway, the fact is Macduff is in England, far away. So Ross says, I have to leave now. Then we get the third mystery of the play. It's a minor thing, but it's certainly puzzling. A messenger, an anonymous messenger. Lady, you don't know me, but you are in great danger. Flee, get out of here fast. Huge danger is coming. Bye. Where can I go? What can I do? Who would try to hurt me? I haven't done anything. That mentality is very interesting. No evil can befall me. I haven't done anything wrong. Is that how evil works? But that's a natural human reaction. I've harmed no one. Who would want to harm me? It's a hostile world, sometimes at least, and everyone is open, everyone is vulnerable, everyone is really in danger. Sometimes worse than others, admittedly. Then we get the Shakespeare. Shakespeare is very weak with depicting little children. The children are always brats, insufferable brats. So we'll skip that, the little banter between Lady Macduff and Little Macduff. Suddenly enter the bad guys. Get out of here, you guys. Okay. One interesting question. Here's this terrible murder that's going to take place. Here are these bad guys who are going to kill this woman, this excellent woman, but it doesn't even matter. This woman and her children. Now, if this murder takes place on the stage, then our aversion, our loathing for Macbeth must skyrocket. If the murder takes place off the stage, because we hear the voices and all that, but on the wings of the stage, then our aversion is a little more moderate, so to speak. And of course, most directors will put it off the stage, because Shakespeare has to struggle to keep our affection, to keep us feeling a little affection for Macbeth. It's a disturbing scene. And then the end of the scene, Act 4, Scene 3, takes place in England. It's the longest scene in the play, and that means in Act 4, Scene 2 and 3, we do not see Macbeth. We lose contact with Macbeth, so to speak. But we see him through the eyes of others, and we've just seen, of course, that terrible murder. Okay. Malcolm is in England, a guest of Edward the Confessor, the saintly king of England, who died in 1066. So the play is very datable to the middle of the 11th century. And Malcolm and Macduff are talking. Now we have to remember that Malcolm has been there for some time. Really, if we followed the Chronicles, he's been there for almost 17 years. In that case, he's no boy. But Shakespeare wants to keep him young, and I'll show you why. So the chronology is kept very obscure by Shakespeare. Okay, they're talking, and Macduff is saying, you must come, you must bring an army, and lead that army against Macbeth, and restore peace and security and decency and honor to our country, Scotland, which is suffering so terribly. Basically, we have to remember that many people have approached Malcolm probably over the years. And some of these people have been sent surely by Macbeth. Why? To lure Malcolm out of this safety of the English court to kill him. Macbeth knows, Macduff doesn't seem to realize this, but Malcolm, although he's been in the English court, has had a difficult time, a terrible time probably, feeling embarrassed at having to be so dependent upon the English king, who is saintly and generous completely, but still a bad situation. So basically, Malcolm tests Macduff for everything that Macduff says bad about Macbeth. Malcolm says, "If I were your king, I'd be even worse." Now, one thing that interests me tremendously is your women would not be safe, your daughters, your wives, your matrons, none of them safe from the cistern of my lust. Great expression. But this speech implies, for my purposes, this speech implies that Macbeth has been wildly lascivious. That is, a libertine has been chasing after the women, not just chasing after them, seducing them and forcing them and all kinds of things. But what happened to impotence? I think that there's no problem here. Macbeth's impotence, I think, is confined to his relations with his wife. Because this is a psychological phenomenon, of course. And it's very difficult to get past the impasse that they have reached. So, yeah, I think it's very believable. The scene implies it, clearly implies it, among other things. Your jewels and your belongings would not be safe. I'd steal them all. My avarice is bottomless, and so forth, and other things too. And poor Macduff presents argument after argument, and then finally Macduff breaks down and weeps. Then poor Scotland, my poor country, our poor country, is kind of moving, because then suddenly Malcolm says, "No, everything I've said is a lie. I've had to be this way, but now I trust you, Macduff. I trust you with my life. In the first place, I've never told a lie in my life. Second, I'm an absolute virgin, sexually pure. That's that much more reason to confirm my thesis, by the way, in my opinion, at least. And I will do this. I will lead the army with you, and we will take back our country." Great moment. Then, still in the same scene, we have two other matters of business. First, the strange scene where we learn about the miracles performed by Edward the Confessor, healing, touching, instant healing miracles. Then we get the greatest scene of all, I would say, in the play, and one of the great scenes. Ross suddenly enters from Scotland. Everything okay in Scotland? Yep. Still the same? Yep. Terrible things every day, every hour. Terrible atrocities. My wife okay? Yep. Everything okay. They talk a little more, and then Ross says, "Forgive me, but no one can forgive me because I've got to tell you the most terrible thing I can imagine telling anyone, a terrible thing that's happened." And Macduff is a little bit complacent, at least in the script. I have a guess. I think Macduff thinks that maybe his barn burned or something. I like to say this. Because after all, Ross has already assured him that his wife, Ross's relative too, is okay. And children. Your wife killed, terribly slaughtered. To tell you how it happened would just sicken anyone. Children slaughtered. Servants slaughtered. What a... Whew, What a moment. Macduff apparently has a hat on and puts the hat on over his head. Malcolm's reaction to this is key too, though. First, Macduff, what? All of my wife? Did you say my wife? Slaughtered. And all my little ones? All slaughtered at one fell swoop, as if by a hawk that snatched the eggs out of a nest? All at one fell swoop? It's just too much for too much for him or anyone to grasp, actually. A wonderful opportunity for an actor. I've never seen it. And I almost don't want to see it. It's really one of the great moments. Moving, powerful. Wow. What's more powerful than this? But Shakespeare even goes further, because Malcolm's reaction, and this is why I insist that Malcolm has to be a young man, because he says, "What, men? Get a grip. Convert all this pain to anger, and we will go and conquer, and we will go get revenge and punish." What it amounts to is that Malcolm can't quite stop talking. His reaction is the reaction of a young man who, in his nervousness, in his general perplexity, has to speak. But what he should be doing is being quiet. But he speaks. Now, a key moment for me is right here in many ways. What a remarkable scene. I realized I said the same thing about the scene where Macbeth comes in with the daggers and all that. What an amazing play. What a great, great play. Far more mature than Hamlet, far more mature than Othello. Yeah, it's at the top. But I'll still take Antony and Cleopatra. But I guess it's the equal of King Lear, I would say. Anyway, what greatness, because Macduff says, apparently to Ross, he has no children. Now, who is this he? And this is an ambiguity. Any editor will note this. He could be Macbeth. To get full revenge, what do you do? Kill Macbeth's children too? But he has no children. If he means Macbeth. He could also mean, and I think probably does mean, but it's ambiguous, could mean Malcolm. How can he possibly understand? He has no children. I think even both are true. Now, he has no children is central to my thesis, and this is an important line. He has no children, meaning Malcolm, is also central to the point I'm making, because Shakespeare is setting up Act 5, Scene 9, the final scene of the play, when Malcolm recovers. Okay. Act 5. Act 5, just have time to do this. Act 5 has 9 scenes. The first scene is a great, great scene too. Lady Macbeth sleepwalking. Doctor and gentlewoman are watching. Gentlewoman has told the doctor to come because she has seen this sleepwalking. The doctor has been there the previous 2 nights. It's just like Hamlet, Act 1, where they've been waiting for the ghost the previous 2 nights also. Anyway, Lady Macbeth enters carrying a taper. That's a problem. Why does she need the taper? It's dark. Her eyes are closed. She's sleepwalking. And she's talking. And what she says is brilliant. Psychologically brilliant. What a psychologist. What a psychologist. She speaks. Yet here's a spot. Out, damn spot. Out, I say. 1, 2. Why then 'tis time to do it. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, fie. A soldier and a feared. She's recapturing these great moments, especially the moment of the murder of Duncan, talking to him. But she's got this spot on her hand. Now she, who before had been such a rock of coldness, a little soap, a little water, go on, wash your hands. These hangman's hands Macbeth had talked about, couldn't stand it. All the oceans of the earth could not make these hands clean. But these hands could make all the oceans of the earth red. What an amazing speech. An amazing thought. Okay. The Thane of Fife had a wife. She's disturbed that he went so far as to kill the Thane of Lady Macduff, and what also bothers her clearly is that he killed her and her family without consulting her. She's concerned about the distance between them. And she mentions all the perfumes of Arabia could not sweeten this hand. What an interesting observation. That is, smell, men have no sense of smell at all, a very crude one. Women have a very refined one. And what a neat touch. The smell of the blood disturbs her. And all of the perfumes can't remove that smell, just like all of the oceans cannot make clean visually Macbeth's hands. What a great touch. The smell of blood. Oh, oh, oh. And then she says, to bed, to bed. There's knocking at the gate. So she even remembers the horrifying knocking at the gate. And the doctor is deeply disturbed. But we know that Lady Macbeth is disintegrating, has disintegrated psychologically. Her guilt has just taken her over. The army is coming, and I can skip a lot of this. Now does he feel his title hang loose about him like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief. The greatest of the clothing images which dominate the play. Oh, great speeches. Macbeth says, my life has fallen into the sear, the yellow leaf. I've become old, and what should accompany old age as honor, respect, love, I have instead curses, not loud, quiet. Mouth honor, my lord, you're wonderful, you're the king, what a great king you are. But it's all a lie. And one knows that these are lies, but wants to believe them. All these great short speeches in this play, in this short play. My life is fallen into the sear, the yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age, as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have. But in their stead, curses, not loud, but deep, mouth honor, breath, that is, lies, which the poor heart would fain deny, which the poor heart wants to deny, but doesn't dare, and dare not. Great. Fourth mystery, Satan. Seyton. Probably we should pronounce it Satan, but a natural pronunciation is Satan. But Satan, Satan. And he's the one servant whom Macbeth does not treat harshly and command around. In fact, he is insolent toward Macbeth with impunity. Okay. Doctor, can't you heal my wife? Can't you can mend a body, can't you mend the mind? Erase memories, painful memories, then cast physic to the dogs. I'll have nothing to do with it. Malcolm, next scene, we're now in scene 4. Malcolm says to the army, they're approaching Birnam Wood. Every man cut off a bough from a tree of Birnam Wood and hold it in front of him, so that we disguise our numbers. Oh, my lord! Then Birnam Wood is going to move to Dunsinane. And Macbeth, of course, will see this. Scene 5. The greatest speech in the play, one of the great ones in Shakespeare. Macbeth is with Seyton, and suddenly Seyton enters and says, oh, first we hear some screams of women, and then the queen, my lord, is dead. She should have died hereafter. There would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This is the nihilistic speech in literature. Nihilism, Nihilism. Nothing has meaning or value at all. Nothing has any importance at all. Life is utterly without value or meaning. The universe is an imbecilic construction. Some people say this is our ultimate fear. I guess so. I guess so. I guess so. So, messenger, my lord, I have a message, but I don't want to tell you. Out with it, fool! I looked out, and it looks like Birnam Wood is walking up the hill. If you are lying, I will hang you on the nearest tree, but you'll die of famine, slowly. If you're not lying, I care not if you do as much for me. This is Macbeth's wit. Act 5, witty throughout Act 5. Alternately irascible, infuriated, and witty. I don't care if you do it the same to me, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh boy. Scene 6, fight well now. Now, Malcolm is accompanied by Seward. Seward is the Lord of Northumberland. Northumberland is a large county in northern England, just south of the border of Scotland. And that's realistic. They would be the people most affected by the disorders of Scotland. Fugitives probably coming in some numbers across the border, seeking safety in Northumberland. Seward is the Lord of Northumberland. He has contributed an army of 10,000 to his credit. And among these soldiers, many of them are young. Among the soldiers is young Seward. And this is important too. Many of these young soldiers having their maiden battle, their first battle. And Seward speaks, and Macduff, of course, is present. So the three of them are the leaders of the rebel forces, shall we say. Malcolm, of course, Macduff, of course, and Seward. Okay. Act 5, Scene 7. Going very fast here. They have tied me to a stake. I cannot fly, but bear-like I must fight the course. Which one of you wasn't born of women? I'm worried about you, but the rest of you, I have nothing to fear. Such a one am I to fear or none. Well, they've tied me to a stake as a reference to bear baiting. Bear baiting was an Elizabethan spectator sport. Some entrepreneur would provide a bear. The bear would be chained to a stake. Of course, that would be quite some stake, like a telephone pole, perhaps. Chained probably at the neck and at the foot. Certainly at the foot. And then they would turn dogs loose on the bear. The bear would be probably wounded. At least one of them would take a bite on his leg, but he with his paws would badly wound or kill some of them too, until they'd call the dogs off. And the crowd would be very amused by this, and there were probably ways to bet on this too, gambling. But Macbeth compares himself to a bear chained to the stake. Young Seward approaches Macbeth, the battle now. Who are you? You'd be afraid if I told you my name. I fear no one. My name is Macbeth. Then I'm glad to be fighting you. Macbeth kills him. Kills young Seward. And he says wittily, you must have been born of woman. I think we're having the approach. Thou wast born of woman, says Macbeth to the dead young Seward, and it's painful because young Seward, a boy, it's a painful moment and more pain ahead. Enter Macduff. Fight me, coward, or surrender. He fights, of course. But they have two little scenes together. They leave the stage fighting, and then scene 8, they reappear. Turn, hellhound, turn. Of all men, Macbeth says, of all men else I have avoided thee. But get thee back. My soul is too much charged, burdened with blood of thine already. That's very interesting. It deserves a moment of attention because it means, yes, he has a conscience. Yes, he feels remorse. But humor is going to dominate the scene here, sort of. Macbeth says, get away, I don't want to murder you too, because my fate is to be invincible to any man born of woman. Then you better despair. because Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. This means a cesarean section, C-section, where the doctors intervene, surgically open the woman, remove the baby that way, surgically close. I doubt in that day that Lady Mother Macduff survived this, but this means that technically Macduff was not born of woman, because to be born of woman means not only to be carried, but to be delivered from the woman's by her labor efforts, her pushing, so to speak, and all that. So, Macbeth, accursed be that tongue that tells me so, for it hath cowed my better part of man. An interesting line for me. Impotence. And be these juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in a double sense. Now I want to linger on this line because to me it's really important. We remember in Act 1, when the Weird Sisters had told Macbeth that he would be Cawdor and then king. Then Ross had entered and said, you are Cawdor. Cawdor was a traitor. The king gives you the properties and estate of the Thane of Cawdor. What? Is it possible? Then Macbeth falls into a kind of self-absorbed trance or meditation. Meanwhile, Banquo had said, the forces of evil often to win us tell us little truths, half-truths, trivial truths, to win our trust, only to destroy us in seriousness. Well, this is exactly what, as I hope I told you when I was there in Act 1, this is exactly what happens. Banquo had told Macbeth exactly what was happening. Macbeth had either refused to listen, either had not heard, but by an effort of will, or had heard but refused to believe, and now he's come around full circle, and be these juggling fiends no more believed that palter with us in a double sense. Well, this play then has been about self-deception too. It's because this is exactly what has happened. Macbeth had willed himself into believing the Weird Sisters, though deep down he knew very well what Banquo knows, because his spirituality is at least as deep as Banquo's, that they tell us lies and lure us, win our trust. Don't worry, you can be happy with material wealth. Don't worry, you can be happy with pleasure, unlimited pleasures, and or alcohol, or physical carnality, or whatever. All of this we know very well cannot give us really happiness, is only illusory. We know it perfectly well. Anyone knows it. Anyone who lives and breathes knows it. We pretend not to know these things, though, of course. Self-deception, foolery, disingenuity, my theme. That theme is the center of this play. At the center, I'll finish up now. Final scene. Macduff enters. Well, first, Ross reports to Seward that his son is dead. His young son, young Seward, is dead. Did he have his wounds on the front or behind? That is, was he running away or did he fight like a man? All front. Then I'm okay. I can accept it. If I had as many sons as I have hairs on my head, I could accept this. Malcolm says, very important, he's worth more sorrow, and that I'll spend for him. Little one line, divided one line. Great one line. The fact that it's one line is important because it means that Malcolm is a much more mature, much deeper man than he was when he had 5, 6, 7 line speeches to Macduff in Macduff's moment of pain. The fact that it's one line is key. What he says, of course, powerful. This means to a viewer that Malcolm will be a good king. He's a good man. We knew he was good, but we didn't know he was deep. Now we know he's deep. And that's the whole reason why Shakespeare put those lines in Malcolm's mouth when Macduff received his terrible news, to establish this contrast. Great. Then enter Macduff with Macbeth's head on a stick. Now, Hooray, hooray, say the victors. Hooray, Scotland is saved. The tyrant is dead. The monster is dead. Hooray. But what do we feel, we in the audience? We can't possibly feel a sense of triumph. We can't possibly feel totally glad. We can't possibly maybe even feel that the good guys won and the bad guy lost. What we will feel is the ambiguity of the moral universe. What we will feel is there are vast forces at work in this universe over which we have no control at all, or very little, a thread, like Banquo. And there are these vast forces that are at work everywhere, in us, outside us, in events, forcing events like, say, this sexual impotence, for example. And we can't understand these forces, we can't control them. How then can we assign moral guilt and innocence? We can maybe, but it's certainly questionable. Macbeth, an evil man, hard. If we focus on the murder of Lady Macduff and her children, then we have to say this was a terrible, terrible man. But this is a man whom we've gotten to know and love, respect, admire. Even in his struggling like a fly in the spider's web, struggles like a fly in the spider's web. But we are all flies in spiders' webs. All. And to claim that we understand what is happening, to claim that we understand why we do anything or say anything, or anybody else, of course, is absurd, impossible. The moral universe presented in Macbeth is very disturbing, and it raises all kinds of questions about moral judgment, morality itself. And that is its depth, that's its profundity, that's its greatness. The two forces that to me are most important and are at the center of my version of what we are right here in this play too. One, self-deception. What's the other one? I talked too much, I forgot my other one, but you who have followed me at all, self-deception is right there. It's exactly what happens in the play. And self-deception, disingenuity, and our mythical attempts to, our pretense, really it's more self-deception, our pretense that we understand anything. All pretense, all self-deception, all wishful thinking, all absurd, really. Is the universe absurd? No, but any claim that we make to understand it is. Any claim that we make to understand anything is absurd, I think. Thank you.